Thanks so much for that. First of all, let me start off by saying what a pleasure it is to open this think tank with such a stellar lineup of speakers. Jackson Carlow has been a stalwart of the Scottish Conservative Party for the last 25 years. Joe Swinson, who's just on our way right now, is one of the leading lights and future leaders, I believe, of the Liberal Democrats. Jim Mather is certainly, even though he has stepped down as a minister in the SNP government, is somebody who I personally knew as a friend. And Alistair Darling holds the distinction of not just having served in the cabinet in the previous government from the first to the last days for the 13 years of tenure of that government, but also having won the respect and affection of the general public during that time. So it's fitting that we have people from all parties, all the political parties represented here. And the Scotland Institute's Board of Advisors will also be a broad church and will also consist of people from all the major parties and people from no party at all. It will comprise of people from academia, from business, from the media, from the military and other backgrounds. But they'll all be united by one thing, and that is a determination to ensure that Scotland can fulfil its full potential. Now, I'm often asked that why did I want to set up this think tank at this particular moment? Why did I want to set up it now? And the answer is actually quite clear, is that I believe that Scotland has never had a greater need for clear thinking about its future as it does now. Today we face challenges and choices that are bigger perhaps than at any time in our recent history. Just the immediate decision we face is big enough, whether to remain part of the UK or whether to continue our journey independent of the UK. And the question for writers, for thinkers, for politicians is, do we have a national debate which adequately serves the enormity of that question? And all too often I fear that we do not. All too often I see the argument conducted on the basis of sentiment and sensationalism. But if we are to make a decision as a country, I believe we should make that decision not based on politics, partisanship or prejudice, but on the basis of a sober reflection of the evidence before us, on the basis of a detailed analysis of the pros and cons of that decision. And the Scotland Institute seeks to provide that analysis. The second choice we face is how to remain economically competitive in an ever-changing and globalised world. Scotland has a very inspiring record of achievement. For a nation of 5 million people, we have continuously punched above our weight. It is Scottish minds that can take credit for inventions like the telephone, the television, penicillin, anaesthetics, radar, etc. Inventions that have changed the course of humanity. Enterprise, innovation and discovery are within the DNA of the Scottish people. But just as we have punched above our weight, I believe we are punching below our potential today. Do we make the best use of Scottish talent? Could we do more to convert raw Scottish innovation into economic competitiveness? I believe this question is more open today than it has been for years. For years, Scotland, like most of the Western world, bought into the orthodoxy that light touch financial regulation will ensure that we can keep growing and keep continuously being competitive. But since the financial crisis, in classrooms, in boardrooms, in parliaments all over the world, that orthodoxy has fallen into question. Countries like India and China that were barely on the economic map in the 20th century are likely to dominate the 21st century. Only this year, Brazil overtook the United Kingdom as being the 6th largest economy in the world. So if we want to continue punching above our weight in the coming century, we cannot rely on the orthodoxies of the last century. If Scotland wants to punch above its weight, we must get our economic policy right. And that will not happen by accident. It will not happen without rigorous research. And it is that what the Scotland Institute seeks to provide. The third choice we face is how to get the best from the talent of the Scottish people. Scotland, like the rest of the UK, has too many people whose talent is untapped. Too many live on the margins of society. In 2010, our research has shown that 17% of people in Scotland lived in relative poverty, and surely that figure is much higher today. And behind these statistics lie real life stories. Too many children are going to school hungry. Too many are living in accommodation that is temporary, crumbling and makeshift. Too many cannot fight their corner because they do not have access to legal advice. Too many, in short, are living a daily life in which there is struggle and they are not fulfilling their potential. That does not just offend the inherent compassion of the Scottish people, but also holds back Scotland's economy. I believe in a Scotland which is competitive, which where wealth is fairly distributed, and which tackles the issues of social exclusion as a matter of course. That is why the first study that we have commissioned is an extensive report on poverty and social exclusion in Scotland today, which will provide the basis of subsequent reports and recommendations. So these three choices, independence, competitiveness, social exclusion, face our country, and the answer we give in this generation will affect the millions to come in subsequent generations. And let me just conclude by saying this: I am very proud of being Scottish. I am very proud of being from a country which has such a strong Enlightenment tradition. I am inspired by the philosophers of the Scottish Enlightenment, and I share their belief that ideas are the guiding light which can change the face of society for the better. And it was no less a thinker than Voltaire who said that we look to Scotland for all our ideas on civilization. And through the Scotland Institute, we will provide these ideas, we will provide the analysis and the evidence which will guide Scotland going forward into the 21st century. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll pass it on to our first speaker of the day, Alice Darling, who requires no introduction. Thank you so much.